Hey everyone, my name is John Stix from Nucleus.com, a company that is a unified communication space for entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Hey everybody, thanks for on the show. We got a great episode today with John Stix. Now, John Stix is the co-founder and CEO of Fibernetics beyond Telecom. Now, they're going to be talking on this show about Nucleus, their newest product. Now, a little bit about Nucleus, actually. Nucleus is a free business phone system app designed by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and startups to change the way they communicate with their customers, teams, and vendors. So Nucleus represents a lifelong collaboration between two friends, John Stix and Jody Schnarr, who have built multiple technology companies alongside a leadership management team. John and Jody believe in the power of creating transformational business cultures to create transformational businesses. Fibernetics has an impact mission that matters. A year-over-year employee surveys reveal that over 50% of Fibernetics employees hope to stay with the company for life. John and his team have over 20 years of experience together and understand what customers require to succeed in the ever-changing business communications landscape. So guys, we're going to be in the telecom industry today, and I think you're going to enjoy this episode, so sit back and absorb. All right, guys, we have John Stix from Nucleus. John, how you doing?
Amazing. Good to be here, Ken. Thanks for the opportunity.
No problem. Glad to have you. So we're recording this in the end of April, where the weather now has slowly started to get warmer and warmer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, John, correct me if I'm wrong. Are you in Canada?
Yeah, Waterloo.
Waterloo. Okay. So
Waterloo, Ontario.
I do not have to whip out my Fahrenheit to Celsius piece of paper that I always carry here for my guests that I have from the US or anywhere outside of Canada that usually I'd like to do Fahrenheit. So for those listeners, though, we are at, let's see, it's about 10, 14. We're about 58 degrees Fahrenheit, for those who are wondering. So
it's nice. It's nice and warm for us, relatively speaking, right, Ken?
Anything over 10 degrees, over 10 degrees is shorts weather. That's pretty much what it, barbecue weather, shorts weather, whatever you want to call it. So
that's right.
But anyway, so, all right, John Stix, Nucleus, what's your story?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be on here, and I always relish and look forward to the opportunity when I can speak to entrepreneurs, leaders, this goes all the way back. I have to, if I'm going to talk about Nucleus, I have to go all the way back to really the creation of Fibernetics. Mm-hmm. This goes all the way back to meeting a good buddy, 16, 17 years old. And I remember his name's Jody. And I remember Jody and I used to drive around, hanging out and kind of dreaming and thinking of what it must, how do these people get these big homes and all these really like amazing cars to drive? And for a couple of young guys you're thinking that's pretty awesome. And, it really was just kind of like the start of dreams and thinking about what we could achieve. And I would say, from that point on, we just never stopped dreaming. We never stopped thinking about what we could do together and what would a business look like. And, Waterloo is known as, in many circles, Silicon Valley of the North. But when we were starting, and I'm age dating myself, but going, way back to 1994, when deregulation happened here in Canada, in telecommunications, there wasn't any infrastructure really to support entrepreneurial dreams or businesses for that matter. And so we were really dependent upon what we could really, dive into and research and try to make happen. And, we weren't even calling ourselves entrepreneurs. We were just a couple of buddies trying to figure out what we could do next. And, we tried everything. We tried a bunch of different things, Ken. Everything from buying a truck that was all beaten up and smoking out from not just the exhaust, but what seemingly all over the place, which was hot top paving. A couple guys trying to pave your driveway to, figuring out that we are now experts in purification of water and kind of everything in between. Needless to say, all of those didn't really make it out past. Or how about this? They didn't become what we would define as being successful. They didn't last very long. And then deregulation, like I referenced earlier, came out. And really what that meant for us at that time with no communication or telecommunications experience whatsoever. Neither of us going, to school for that. But what it represented was an open market and the ability for us to really think, well, we don't need a big piece of the pie. And since deregulation has occurred, that means that entrants can come in and now compete with the incumbents. And surely all we really need is a tiny little sliver. And so over some chicken wings and a beer, at the local pub one Thursday night, we thought, why not? Let's give it a try. We've tried all these others before. And looking back, the fact that we kept trying gave us the confidence to go at it again. And so, I think it's really important that we don't just jump through our experiences, and we really, I like what someone says that I learned is to make sure if you're going to fail, you fail forward. And so in failing forward, you're learning and you're continuing to stay curious and discover. And so when the market opened up, we were kind of poised. Looking back, I didn't realize we had experience, but we had the experience to just jump at it. And so we jumped into telecommunications. We figured out a couple specific angles that we thought we could try. Failed a good 9 more times, and then on our 10th we hit it. And so through perseverance, we had figured out that we could eliminate the long distance charges between two cities that would normally pay 25 or 30 cents per minute long distance. And I know for some of your younger listeners, that sounds impossible, but yeah, no, that's true. Long distance used to cost that much.
Yeah, and the funny thing too is, sorry to cut you off there, John, but
yeah, no problem.
I remember back in my limited experience in the telecommunication space was I used to work at what's now known as TELUS, but before that, ClearNet. So I used to work the help desk, so people would call and basically yell at me about their bill, but we actually had per second billing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And working and also just one other quick story is that my first kind of not office job, but maybe one of my first customer service jobs when I was younger, like all entrepreneurs or young people are, was working telemarketing at Ma Bell Canada.
Very good.
I'm the guy that would call you just around dinner time, talk to you about your rate plans, and basically getting yelled at, hung up on, and stuff like that. So, it's funny with stuff like that. But sorry, continue with your story with Fibernetics. And so you said you found an angle with Fibernetics. So what was that? So you said you were able to remove long distance from two cities. So continue with that.
Yeah, and this is before Fibernetics was created. So this is even before that. But essentially, I'll give you two exact examples. So between Waterloo and Stratford, for those of you who are familiar with Stratford, bedroom community to Kitchener-Waterloo. And at that point in time, there was a strong demand in terms of long distance calling, and so we had found out that through the CRTC and its regulations that you could place a server in a little town that was local to both. So in this case, this little town called New Hamburg was local to Stratford and Waterloo, and if we put a server there and ordered certain specific trunk lines from Bell Canada, we were able to actually jump the call forward. And so it eliminated the long distance per minute charge. And we thought, okay, this is amazing. Let's charge flat rate long distance because that had not been done yet. And I remember knocking on all the doors, and Jody and I were knocking on all the doors, driving to Stratford. And Ken, after too long of a time, only 75 customers signed up. And we had done our surveys prior to that, and everyone said, oh my goodness, if you could come out with $10 all you can call, we want that. But one of our biggest first lessons was $10 all you can call back in the day. And I remember this was one of our biggest lessons we learned early on, which is when it comes time to switch, it's hard for people, even if the value seems to be all there, and then the next lesson is, who are these young guys that actually could do this and not Bell? So there was doubt that entered in, right? And so I remember driving back after door knocking, and we had we had $850 worth of payables and $600 worth of receivables. And we had been down this path before, like I described earlier, and we're like, here we go again. But we were listening to, this was a defining moment in our history, actually. we were listening to a radio station that were paying for two families to talk to each other that couldn't afford to during Christmas. And we thought, wait a second, we deployed a system that eliminates the long distance calling. And sure, we have a bill, but we know what that bill is every month and how many calls it can process. It can process 4,000 calls a day, which is a lot.
Wow.
So what if we actually just made it free? And this is way before there was freemium models or anything like this. This is back in 1995, 96. And we thought, well, I could see how that could work, but how are we going to make money doing that? I thought, well, there was this little place where it said, please enter the number you want to connect to, where there was up to 30 seconds where we theorized we could place a little ad. So we thought, okay, well, what if we could find someone that would want to take credit for all the free calling? And sure enough, Gary Stockey, Chevel's Cadillac, a GM dealer in Stratford, said, sure. And he it's funny negotiations, which I won't get into detail about it now, but
not over wings and beer.
Yeah, basically, how about a car and a little bit of money? And we were like, okay, as two young entrepreneurs. And big lesson happened here again, and this is where this has shaped the entire history of our company. We made it free. We went to the local paper, Stratford Beacon Herald. Still remember, they ran a big article on that it was now free to call between all of Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Stratford, brought to you by the local GM dealer. That gave it credibility. Mm-hmm. And we ended up with 2/3 of all the households within the first month.
Wow.
And we were busily trying to add facilities and keep up with all the calling activity. And then we reproduced that same system right through Ontario and into Quebec. And we ended up selling that company. And I remember at that time, this is what birthed Fibernetics, is we really feel like it wasn't a dream come true, the stories of like the check across the table and all these different things. And really what it was, we felt like we had cut the dream way too early. And so to make a long story short, we were in the living room with my dad, and he just one time just got up and just said, out of his lazy boy, and just said, hey, that door behind you guys, that's closed, but there's at least 3 more in front of you. Are you going to decide to walk through one? And great wisdom in the time. And we kind of looked at each other and said, okay, let's do this. So we decided to make a list of all the things we did right and all the things we thought we could improve upon, and put all, whatever shekels we had and put them in the middle of the table, and really deconstructed a path where we wanted to build a legit phone company that could compete with all the incumbents, large telcos across Canada. And that was a really daunting thing to do because, here's where everyone started coming out from out of the woodwork saying, you can't do that. It's too much money. You can't build out infrastructure. You can't compete with the incumbents. You could be a reseller. You should stay like that. But we realized if we wanted to disrupt the market and deliver value like we had dreamt about doing, we needed to have autonomy from the incumbents. We needed to be able to have our own sandbox, to be entrepreneurs, to play in, to create, to gain market share. And so we took the time to really reverse engineer that and had some great teammates join us. And we were able to do that. And going forward, Fibernetics is now in its 21st year. And we have a very, one of the largest infrastructures in Canada. In fact, by some measurements, the 5th most used infrastructure in terms of volume usage in the entire country. Wow. We're national. We cover upwards of well over 90% of the entire population of Canada. And we have a full suite of residential services, commercial services, and wholesale services. And I'm proud to say we are also a repeat winner, multiple times Culture Award winner. Oh. And this year we won the most giving company in our region. And so we've been, with the blessing of some amazing people to come with us along for this, Jody and I are still privileged to be able to run Fibernetics. And the reason why all that's important is during a big change in our culture, I won't go into the whole story there, but it is online if your listeners want to find out about it. But we really did go through an incredible rebirth of who we are as a company. One of the initiatives that we put into play was we emailed all of our employees and said, if you've dreamt about being an entrepreneur, you're safe, come to us with your idea. If we think that it can become a real business, we'll help you put the money and people all around it and the resources needed. to build your dream. And so we ended up having to buy, Ken, like we thought that was going to be in a tiny little office in our one building. We ended up having to buy a 25,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. We called it the Seedling Initiative. And now one of those seedlings, incidentally, is upwards of 30 to 40% of the entire size, like comparatively speaking, of our whole company.
Whoa.
And so great innovations birthed out of that. And the important message there is that being entrepreneurial has never left our hearts. Mm-hmm. I like to tell others when I'm interviewed about culture or workplace culture is that, for us, we need enough process so that we know what we're all doing and how, where we're going in our day-to-day work, but never too much that it strangles or takes away our entrepreneurial zest and zeal. And so when we can figure out kind of walking in that in between where, we're entrepreneurial enough to think about innovating and what I call micro innovating, then we're getting better and we're growing. And so Nucleus is really, my goodness, it represents everything I just said. Nucleus, going back to before COVID, we had started to whiteboard where we think communications were going. And we really started to think about this space called UCaaS. And what UCaaS is Unified Communications as a Service. And we started thinking, that's such an odd name, because if you're anything like me, Ken, I'm not sure if you would agree, but sometimes it feels like I have 6 or 7 different applications open all the time.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. I think maybe some people, maybe more than 10. I don't know how they do it.
Right.
But apparently it happens. Yes.
Yeah. And yet, Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Slack and WhatsApp, et cetera, great, amazing services that allow us to connect in ways we never thought it possible. But I think it's become overload. And so going back again to that time frame before COVID, we started thinking, where's it going? And we thought, well, they're all great, but they really haven't been unified. And then, of course, COVID hit and the world changed. And we just saw explosion of the usage of these applications, for obvious reasons, hybrid remote workforce.
Right.
And we just started thinking, what could we dream up that would be different from the rest? And from those dreams birthed Nucleus. Yeah. And
wow.
And so what Nucleus is we believe that we have developed an application that at the heart of it bridges your team, your vendors, and your customers together. And so we like to say it like this: you're going to use Microsoft Teams. It's good application, but you really just use it for your team. And then with Zoom, you're not calling a pizza store across the street. You're generally booking an appointment with someone that is obviously could be far away. It's more one-on-one. And then Slack, you have like team chat.
Yeah, and it's sorry to cut you off there, John, but you're totally right about that, because I know with Teams, like you can't really dial out to anybody, right? You're only within your organization is what you can use it for. And like you said, Zoom, like you said, 1-to-1, that's maybe you can do a group, I guess. But it's interesting how you said Nucleus can kind of touch upon everything, where it's a one-stop shop for not just your teammates, but your suppliers, but also your customers.
That's it. And that's really what we wanted to try to, remedy, is if it's going to be called Unified Communications as a Service, then how do we actually unify? And so Nucleus is that. It's full team chat, video. We have a full phone system in there. So your customers can call your phone number and it acts like line extensions with an auto attendant. Your team can then obviously get on and do a video call or a team chat about the customer. And we bridged in their texting. So your customers can actually text the same number, and that text shows up in your Nucleus application. And then anyone on your team, as an entrepreneur, there might be 3, 4, or 5 of you, can see that text come in from a customer, jump on it, respond, and your teammates can see that you've responded. And it goes back out through the Nucleus application into any device. And they don't have to have Nucleus on the customer end.
Interesting. So then let me know. So how big is your team right now with Nucleus?
Our Nucleus team is rather small. It's been developed um, with the great help of our parent company, Fibernetics. And so on the
Okay.
Fibernetics team, we're upwards of 150. And so
Okay.
there's been various people that have touched and put their influence and work into developing this application.
Wow. So okay. So you started. So you have so the Nucleus team is a little bit smaller, but the Fibernetics parent company, there's around 150 people, which is great. So what are
That's
your
right.
actual plans on expansion then? Because obviously, where can you go from here? You've already developed this really cool tool that I think, I think when users, I'll tell my listeners to definitely try to download it, see if you can and try it out and see how well it really is. But what's your plan for the next 5 years?
Yeah, great question. Well, first off, I want to let everyone know that Nucleus is free. And so that ties back to the original story of discovering that, free is fantastic. It delivers value, it builds relationships. And we made it free because, one, we have the infrastructure that allows voice to exist on our infrastructure in an incredibly cost effective way. But we are the telco, so we have we have a million phone numbers on our infrastructure, and so you can port your number over to us, or we can give you a brand new telephone number that Nucleus answers to. It's completely free of charge. You can use it as much as you want. It's not a limited usage, and we're going to be surrounding it, Ken, over the next, well, shortly towards 5 years of peripheral services that add value to your unique business and setup. So we're building really, really wonderful AI tools right now. We're focusing on the voice side of AI more. Can't let the cat out of the bag right now, but let's just say there's some really exciting stuff that's going to be deployed very soon through Nucleus on the AI front. And these are going to be all premium services that you can just add on, which is obviously revenue generation for us, but also enhances your experience with Nucleus. And what we're hoping and we're planning for is there's 100,000 startups created every year in Canada, 1.2 to 1.4 in the United States. And we believe that we have an application that empowers entrepreneurs to connect with their customers and vendors like they've never done before and with each other. And they can be anywhere, right? So you can be in Vancouver, Calgary, in the United States, Toronto. It doesn't matter as long as it's a Canadian-based company. Your company can be spread out anywhere, and you can always be connected amongst yourselves, your vendors, and customers.
Wow, that's really cool. Like I said, and it's free. That's not too bad. And for the new stuff coming up, listeners, don't get. I'll let you on a sneak peek. I'm going to take John out for wings and beer. He'll let me know. So then I'll
Yeah,
probably
anytime. Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, if you do
excellent.
that first release for sure through your podcast, how about that?
There we go. Excellent. So let's go back to some of the journeys that you have here. So you started
Sure.
you're basically your telecommunications company. So, a lot of people are thinking of this. They're like, holy crap, isn't that really expensive? So what's been your biggest expense starting your company?
Well, I'd say our biggest expense was trying to figure out, how do we build this infrastructure that everyone's telling us is impossible to build without, well north over 100 million to invest, and we certainly did not have that. We had to figure out a way to build revenue before we could have our infrastructure. And so, that's what I meant about kind of reverse engineering it. I'll be specific. What we did was in the days, my business partner and I and others figured out that there was a mechanism whereby the incumbents had to pay us revenue and we had to pay the incumbents revenue based on what was really deemed as one-way traffic. And so I won't get into all the details of it, but if we could figure out a mechanism where we could have a lot of one-way traffic towards our company, then the incumbents like Bell, TELUS, would have to pay us. And so that one-way traffic is best represented as dial-up back in those days.
Oh,
And
the
Ken,
dial-up.
good old dial-up.
Oh
And
man.
Ken, this is going back when dial-up was being phased out, and so everyone was moving towards high speed. But what we realized is sometimes when the market is leaving, there's an amazing opportunity within that. And so what we decided to do was, as everyone was dumping all of their servers for pennies on the dollar, we were trying to gobble them all up and buy them. And that saved us a ton of money. And because we had a completely different cost base, we were able to offer dial-up. Back in the day when people were still paying $20 to $25 a month for dial-up, we were doing it for $2.95 a month.
Holy crap.
Right? And so that allowed us to really capture that market, because now all of a sudden the delta between, hey, I'm used to dial-up being at $20, but now I can get it for $3 a month, which is like a coffee, compared to trying this new high-speed thing that I'm not sure I'm ready for yet. I'll switch to this dial-up. So we quickly became the fastest growing dial-up company in Ontario and then Canada. And that provided, dial-up is one-way traffic. So that provided all this one-way traffic, to which then we could execute on this mechanism where the phone companies, the big phone companies, had to pay us, which then allowed us to start capitalizing our company to be able to start building out our own infrastructure.
And you're able to expand more locations.
Over those locations. That's right. So the biggest struggle for us was really trying to figure that out. And then once that happened, that opened up a door of possibilities that we never really even thought possible.
Jeez. So then, like you said, starting your was a big expense, was just really trying to build your infrastructure. Was there anything else that most people don't even realize that you had to start with? Because I guess with nowadays, you're thinking of telecommunication, you're thinking about your phones, all these different apps and networks and high speed internet. It's all just assumed that, anyone can really start it. But there's probably a lot of stuff in between, like you said, just to start it. But was there anything else that you want to touch on?
I would say something that, and maybe this is outside of just telecom, but relevant to really, I think, any industry, any business, is, we were very fortunate because we built our business from, like I said earlier, a big dream. And that big dream was for us to really just be able to hang out more. I mean, we're just young guys that really like hanging out. So can't we just do something that pays our bills so that we can just keep hanging out? And so we had the fabric really early on of building out a company that was based on family. And, I think early on we didn't realize how special that was, how rare that is. And, as we grew and we brought on more and more people, I mean, culture was easy when it was, hey, go out for lunch, we're sitting around the table and we're talking about our dreams, and there's 10 of us. But when you get to 20, 40, 50, 60, 100 and more, it's pretty hard to get a table big enough to fit everyone. Mm-hmm. And so, that connection to the heart of the company, to the dreams that we have, which really is that big vision, becomes strained and difficult to instill, or I suppose have people feel. And so in our 11th year, after going through tremendous growth, really amazing growth year on year, we really did hit a wall. And this is a wall that a lot of companies hit. This is a wall that a lot of promising entrepreneurs hit. Harvard Business Review released an article recently, and it said that the number one obstacle now in the category of promising startups, so not just startups, but promising startups, on why they fail, is the number one reason is founder toxicity, meaning, conflicting values, conflicting viewpoints, and it ends up, obviously bringing down the potential.
So the founder almost kind of so sorry to cut you off there. So it's like the founder kind of gets in the way of everything.
Yeah, or just there's a collision in what the founders think are important, and they don't know how to resolve that. And so, we just experienced tremendous growth. We had great cohesion. It felt like we were all just naturally marching from one drum. But then, in our 11th year, we really did notice that there was new things to us that we had never really come across before, infighting and things that you call them silos, but really people holding things close to their chest. And, from an entrepreneur's perspective, Ken, you wake up one day and all of a sudden you're supposed to be this thing called a businessman or a businesswoman, right?
Yeah, and you turn into a counselor almost.
Well, and it's like you're supposed to know everything, but meanwhile, I remember someone said to both of us one time, said, "Hey, guys, you've built pretty good success here. You should hire some gray hair to run it. And I'm like, I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, I got some gray hair.
Me too.
Right. And, and so, the bigger point there is we didn't even know what the word culture meant, workplace culture, or anything like that, but we knew we had some problems. And I mean, let's face it, in business, there's always challenges. You have problems, you reframe them as challenges. As entrepreneurs, that's what we're doing. We're creating solutions, right? So we never want to lose. I don't think we ever want to lose that fact, about our lives or about the careers we've chosen, is that we're really in business to create solutions.
Yeah.
And so when we get too enveloped into the problems and outside of the mindset of creating solutions, I think, it can have a detriment to the entire company. So in that 11th year, our KPIs were going down. There's infighting in our company. Myself as one of the founders, I was feeling disconnected from the very dream that I helped create. And, we really had to, what I call, look inward. We really had to turn the arrow in and say, okay, like who are we? Who is this company? What are we trying to do in the world? What are we, where have we gotten lost? Where's the disconnection? Why are we not what we used to be? And so we went through this real rebirth of discovering who we are. And when we took the time to figure out who we are as leaders, who we are as a business, because, who we are at 25 is completely different than who we are at 45.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, yeah.
Right?
So much has changed during that time, right? So where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah. So for all you entrepreneurs out there and you want to give Nucleus a try, we encourage you to. We just crossed over our beta. So over 2,500 workspaces being used and growing every day. So nucleus.com. And if you want to find out more about Fibernetics that I mentioned and our history, go to fibernetics.ca, fibernetics.ca. Big culture page on there that you can explore our company and services. And and if you want to connect with me, I'm more than happy to be connected with you via LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, John, for being on the show. It was a good one.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Hey you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.